Good? All right. So today we're going to talk about benchmarks. As Daniel just said, who have been in this situation where you see this new model with an amazing score on the benchmark and you're like, oh, let's jump into this new model. But then you might have this feeling that the reality is a little bit different. My name is Pierre. I am the co-founder and CEO of Strapi. If you're not familiar with Strapi, Strapi is the most popular open source headless content management system. So if you need to build a website with React, Vue.js, you probably need a CMS to manage all of this content. And that's what we do. The project has reached 70,000 stars on GitHub. But today, we're going to talk about vibes being more important than the benchmarks. And what we'll really talk about today is the importance of evals for the real world. We'll start with the benchmark value disconnect. We'll talk about the importance of evals, and then we'll introduce this weird concept of vibe benchmarking, which you'll see is not that weird. And finally, we will illustrate all of this through a real-world example that I'm very excited to share with you today. Okay, so let's start with the benchmark value disconnect. When you take a look at benchmarks, you might see this amazing scores. And once you try these models, well, you might be extremely positively surprised about the outcomes. And that's definitely what I wish to all of you. Like, that's what we like as engineers, like trying this new shiny thing and wow, it really is as amazing as it sounds. Sometimes you might be like, oh, okay, might be better on some aspects, but on some others, it's almost a regression compared to what I was using before. And sometimes it's even worse than that. Like, you're like, what? All of this for that? It does not work at all for my use case, at least. And there are a few reasons behind this. Data contamination is probably the biggest one. There are so many benchmarks out there that the creators of the main models that are out there, they fine-tune their models according to these benchmarks, so they get this amazing scores. So it's like going to an exam, but you already have the questions. That's too easy, right? And that's really something to take into account. And as a result, there might be very big sensitivity to alterations. If you use a prompt that's a bit different compared to what you can see in benchmarks, you can get very different results. And you're like, oh, okay, so the results might alter very quickly. And there is also a very strong misalignment of incentives. I think 5 years ago, all of these LLMs were made mostly by independent research labs. But we've seen a lot of consolidation in the space. And the main LLMs are made by very, very large corporations. And there is a very strong bias in these benchmarks. These companies have a very, very strong interest at scoring very, very high. So that's really something to take into account. So we've seen these gold levels emerging recently as finally the source of truth. There are two disadvantages. One of them is that they are very expensive to run. And the other one is that they have inherent flaws. Like they have biases, they have their own data sets, and they may be true like 1 year ago, but we live in a world that's changing so fast that they do not necessarily follow all of these updates. More recently, we've seen pretty nice ways to run benchmarks. One of them is the werewolf that you can see on this slide. So that's basically LLMs playing against each other. And it's a pretty nice way to have unbiased responses, even if, again, it's it's benchmarked on only one specific use case. And the other one is the chatbot arenas, one of them being the design arena. So that's basically humans comparing the same results, the results to the same prompts between different models. And so from what we've seen, there seems to be a little bit less bias. And so at the end of the day, I think we've all been in this situation where we try a new model by writing some prompts. Then we're like, oh, we have this amazing benchmarks. And you know what? There's nothing better than going back to our few prompts. Who has been there? Yeah, a few of you? Probably. So evals come at the rescue. So let's demystify evals, because everybody's talking about evals, but sometimes you're like, oh, what are they? So this is the definition of evals. So evals are structural methods for measuring and assessing the performance, reliability, and safety of artificial intelligence models and systems. So really need to keep this in mind. It's a way to measure things to make sure it works from a quality point of view, but also from a safety point of view. That's a very good one. You don't want your model to share API tokens, for example. So evals might be very helpful in that regard. So I think the big question is, are evals the same thing as unit tests? A lot of us, I think, are coming from the web development world, and unit tests are so helpful to make sure that you control your code. How evals are the same thing? I think it's a really good way to summarize what evals are, but they are so much more than that. So they have their own specificities. First of all, as opposed to programming in the old world, models are non-deterministic. Like if you ask a model to generate a React component for you that is a form, has a few fields, you will get different results. And maybe several of the results that you get are right. It's just that they are different. But we live in a non-deterministic world. This evals can be manual, or they can be fully automated, and they can also be offline, so running on your machine, or they can be online, running thanks to tools dedicated to this. Ideally, they are running continuously. And so if we deconstruct the evals, there are 4 different parts. The first one is a data set. So this is really the list of inputs and outputs that you want to try and that you expect. So the input might be a question like, what is the country with the largest population? That's an input that could be in your data set, and the expected result would be China, and so on and so on. You can have a lot of inputs and expected items in your data set. And that's very important. The other one is the evaluator, and to me this includes 2 things. One is the judge, who is going to eval, to assess. It can be a human, as we've seen before. It can be another LLM, or it can be an heuristic situation where you really have like an exact answer, and that's the one that looks more like the unit test. And the task is basically the prompt to your own model, and the interpretation are the results. So it can be a list of general knowledge question. Heuristic can be like you have one single good answer, and the task can be just asking a question, and then you get the results. So I think it's sometimes better to see code. We have TypeScript here, but it could have been the exact same thing in Python. So we have the data set here, which is a very short one. We have only one entry, and that's the question I just mentioned before. The task is a function that asks our model. And the last one is the scoring, which is, in that situation, an exact match. We want the answer to be China precisely. But there is a lot of different methodologies when it comes to scoring. You can get scores between 0 and 100, and so on and so on. And last but not least, you have the interpretation. So here we have the exact match. We had one question, the answer was good, so it's 100%. And so here, I just added this screenshot of the exact match function to really show that it's either it's a yes or no. But as mentioned before, it could be different than that. It could be a score on the quality of the React component that you get from the model. So evals are a bit complex, although they are simple at the same time. I think it's really important that for the data sets, they can be manually created, as you've seen just before. They could come from the user logs, and that's a very important one, and it's the other part of my talk. And they can be synthetic. Like you can ask an LLM, generate a data set that tries another LLM on that specific field. The evaluators can be the LLM as judge, so you can use an LLM to assess the quality of the answers. They can be heuristics, as we've seen before, with will function, or they can be human. It could be you who are actually assessing your model. Okay, do you like this component or not? And this is exactly what we've seen in the design area, benchmark system. And the tasks might be many different things. There's a lot of different solutions to run evals. You might have heard about length-based brain trust, all of them. They're all great. It really depends on your use case. Feel free to take a look at them. I think it's a really good way to better understand what evals are just by playing with these tools. You will also notice that the vocabulary from one tool to another is sometimes a little bit different. You'll have evaluators somewhere, you have scorers somewhere. So it's okay. This entire world is still new, and so we see different terms here and there. But the concepts stay the same. So today I would like to talk about vibe benchmarking. So what is vibe benchmarking? It's very simple. Just the idea of looking at what users do. Because you can write a ton of evals, and they would certainly be great. But at the end of the day, the question is, what are users doing with your product? Because as an engineer, what we often do is that we wrap an LLM by doing our own agents, and we want to see how people are interacting with our model, with our agent, I should say, because the agent is more likely connected to different tools. So you want to make sure that people have a good experience. So you want to measure and you want to iterate accordingly. And basically that's all this talk is about. And to me, it's way more important than benchmarks, and it's even more important than evals. When it comes to measuring, you want to measure quantitative feedback, and you also want to measure qualitative feedback. We'll dig into this. And you want to iterate. You want to change your system prompts. You want to try different models to see if you get different results. So if we take a look at quantitative metrics, that's a non-exhaustive list of metrics that you can track. The number of prompts to the LLM, the conversion metrics, the user retention, and so on and so on. You can take a look at the list. One of these metrics that I like a lot is the error rate, especially in the vibe coding space. When an LLM generates code, you really want to make sure that the code that's generated is not going to break the app that your user is working on. That's a terrible experience. And so that's something you can easily measure continuously, just like taking a look at, okay, when the server restarts, does it work or not? And you can do this with every other metric. Depending on your use case, you'll certainly have specific metrics that you want to measure, and that's okay. Feel free to add more to the list. The other one is the qualitative feedback. And the qualitative part is maybe the most important one here. So the first part is all about data collection. You want to collect all of the conversations that your users are having with your agent. To do so, you might want to use a tool that's dedicated to this. The majority of the tools I mentioned earlier are very good at this, and they have the logging system, the tracing system, and so on and so on. So you can go back to every conversation that your users have had with your system. You also want pre-processing. Let's say that you have audio AI, let's say that you have audio voice on your agent. You might want to transcript all of this so you can easily analyze these results. And this brings me to the third part, which is the analysis. It's an analysis that you're going to do by yourself, just by taking a look at the conversations. And what you want, ideally, is to have an LLM that's going to scan all of this so you can get a summary of what happened during the last day, during the last week, and so on and so on. And last but not least, you want to have actionable insights. And those are the recommendations. It's good to know what are the issues, but it's more important to fix them. And so the actionable insights are really what you're going to change, typically in this system prompt. So the ultimate workflow might be to measure continuously and to iterate continuously. And I think maybe an agent, maybe we're closing the loop here, having an LLM that scans all of the metrics at the continuously, and eventually iterate on your own system prompt continuously. So that might be the ultimate. You build an agent that iterates by itself thanks to an agent. I'm not sure we'll get there. I think as humans, we stay very important in the loop. But if we can automate some of this workflow, that can be very, very powerful. And once you have this, you can continuously score your model. And then who knows, maybe you'll create your own benchmark. Okay, let's see what this means in the real world. At Strapi, we've been building the most popular open source content management system for the past 10 years. As mentioned earlier, the project is quite popular on GitHub. It's used all over the world. And our mission has always been to help anyone building a website. It could be you as engineers, but it could be anyone who has a computer. And I think AI is really changing the world. And we've been working on a side project that I'm revealing for the first time. It's very much in a beta mode. You can go on the URL, you can sign up for the waitlist, but you won't have access to it right now. Basically, you can ask this tool to create a website for you. And Vimo will create all of the files that you need with a full featured website according to your prompt. And as opposed to some of these tools, it comes with all of the content management capabilities that you need. You can collaborate on the website that you just created. You can edit the content. You can change the style just by doing this. And you can ask the tool to make the content editable in a proper CMS just by saying it, okay, I want the features that are listed on the home page, or I want the testimonials to be editable in a proper CMS, so I can reuse maybe the same testimonials in different pages. And that's what you can do, and it will create the right content types for you. It comes with a full featured CMS, and as we move forward, we'll also add things like content internationalization. There is a media library that comes with it as well. So this has been our side project. So we've been pretty busy with it. But what I really want to share today is we took a look at these benchmarks, and they are changing all the time. Just as a disclaimer, at the moment we're using Claude, but we've tried GGP5 when it was released, and we'll keep trying other models. But at first, we took a look at these benchmarks, and it's really the meme I shared earlier. We tried some prompts, and we decided to pick one versus the other, and we'll continue running this very manual prompts. And as our stack becomes more mature with more automation, because that's still very early days when it comes to evals, we'll automate some of this, ideally with A/B testing. I'll talk very briefly about this. So that's how we got started. At the beginning, we wanted to automate everything. We're going to get results in real time. And you know what? We have a Notion document with 10 prompts, and this is our best tool. So what I want to share here, if you're building an agent, if you're building something, it's okay to go manual. We all want to use the best tools. We all want to automate as much as we can. We are engineers, so yes, that's what we like to do. But it's completely okay to start with very, very manual stuff. We also decided to log all of the traces very early. So we decided to go with braintrust.dev, but there was a lot of different tools. This recording was way too short, sorry. I'm going to run it again. Basically, you can see all of the conversations that the users are having with the system. So it's very helpful. You can take a look, you can better understand what happened, especially if the LLM generated an error. And then as we move forward, I think we'll go multimodal. First of all, to have an anti-fragile architecture, let's say a model is done, we want to easily shift to another. So there is a lot of AI gateways these days. But even more importantly, I think as we move forward, we'll also want to add some A/B testing. So when there is a new model, we can roll it out on just for some users. And if we get better results, thanks to a good eval system, which ideally is based not only on our data set, but on what users are doing, because you understand that that's the main idea in this. So the conclusion is quite simple. Measuring usage is so much more important than constantly taking a look at the latest benchmarks. Observability is key. So my only advice is to measure very early by setting up a monitoring system. And again, there's plenty of them. And you also want to evaluate continuously. So from time to time, take a look at what users have done, and so on and so on, and you iterate accordingly. And that should work. Thank you, everyone.